Let's take a look at a few more ways keyframes can be edited on the trackbar. We'll scrub forward in our animation and grab one of the creature's finger controls. From there, let's go ahead and right-click in an empty space on our time ruler and take a look at this first option we have. So notice we can access our key properties. Now, if you do not have access to this, it's simply a matter of actually right-clicking and grabbing a keyframe. So you can see that if we don't have any keys that we have right-clicked on, we're not going to have access to this. Even if we have a keyframe selected, again, when we right-click, we won't get to anything. We have to be right on top of the keyframe. Now you'll see that we have access to all parameters that have been animated on this object. So if we wanted to take a look at, let's say, the midsection of this finger, take a look at its animation data, notice this little dialog that kind of pops up, and it shows us a bit of information about this key, the tangency we're working with at the bottom, as well as the value we're using and what frame that keyframe is on. So let's say if we wanted to bring this key to frame 45, we most certainly can by simply typing in that value in our time field, and that's where the key has been brought to. So that's basically how this works. If you go to Advanced, you have control over the tangential properties of this keyframe. We'll take a look at this in the following lesson when we cover the curve editor. But for right now, know that the first part of this is a way to adjust the orientation of your tangent, and the second part is a way of controlling your tangent's length. So I know by this value of 0 here in the in and out parameters that the orientation of that tangent is 0, or it's flat. And I know that the length is about 0.3 on both sides. Alright, so again, that's just a look at how we can work with this bit of information, this keyframe data. Alright, if we were to go ahead and right-click again, notice we can get to our controller properties for the animated object. So you can see here exactly what we'd see in our motion panel. So if I were to go ahead and close out of the controller properties here and go over to the motion panel, again, we have a similar layout. Alright, right-clicking again, notice we can also delete any selected keys if we like. So again, if I'm right on top of a keyframe and I right-click and choose delete, notice I can go in and delete whatever information I'd like to from this frame. Or we can delete all selected keys. We have the choice of doing that. So if we didn't want that keyframe right there on 45, we can simply go ahead and remove it. But in this case, you can see that it kind of causes the finger to intersect the floor. So I might just go ahead and undo that back, just pressing Ctrl-Z. All right, better. All right, let's go ahead and right-click again and take a look at our next option. So this allows us to filter what we see on our trackbar. Let's say if we just wanted to see all transform keys. Let's go ahead and choose that. You can see all of the black keys are now removed, and we're left with an array of colors here that represent transforms that we've animated. So the green represents our rotation keyframe, red, position, and if we saw any blue keys, that would be scale. So of course, black is simply custom parameters. That's how they get color-coded. So we have an entire list of options here under our filter submenu. So I did want to point that out to you. Sometimes we want to offset animations a little bit faster. So if I wanted to, let's say, take a look at all keys first and head over to frame 33, you can see on 33 that there is a custom parameter animated. But let's say if we wanted to offset our rotation keys from this custom parameter key. Well, we can right-click and we can choose Filter, All Transform Keys. And now we can go ahead and offset those keys, let's say 2 frames to our right to delay the timing. I've just placed it on frame 35. And now, when we right-click again, go back to Filter and choose All Keys, take a look at that offset. So that's basically how filtering works. If we're to right-click again, we can take a look at Configure. Now, this is very helpful if you are, let's say, wanting to work with a selection of keys much easier. You can head over to Configure and choose show selection range. So I really like to use this to scale keys and offset several keys at a time. So watch this. If we go in and start to select a few keyframes, you can see now we have the selection bar that we can use. We can slide this around if we like. You can see how that starts to adjust our timing. We could also scale our timing as well using this option. So one thing we might experiment with here is going in and grabbing all of the creature's controls. You can see our selection range. If we were to go ahead and just click, just to kind of deselect our selection, and just go in, find a point where we might want to, let's say, adjust our timing. So I'll go ahead and select from 19 to, let's say, about frame 30. We'll go ahead and highlight all of those keys. Now let's see if we wanted to speed up the timing a bit. Well, we can go ahead and drag our handle here on the outside of our selection. And now you can see that when we do that, we are scaling all of our keys proportionally. So when we go ahead and play this back, you'll notice a faster spin as the creature falls. But then, of course, it's going to slow down once it has let go of the bar, simply because we've now spread those keys apart from 26 to 32 as the creature starts to fall. But if we wanted to adjust this a bit more, we could always select the black bar here and start to drag that closer to the keyframe on 32. So now when we play that, we should notice he's starting to fall a little bit faster. All right, so that's essentially how that works. Again, it's a great way to just go in and kind of scale your keys as well as reposition them much faster to fix your timing. Great, so that's a basic look at the configure menu. You can see that we can also show our frames if we like. If we go ahead and uncheck that, now we don't really have an idea of what frame we're on, say for what the time slider shows us. So you might want to keep that on. If you're dealing with sound, you most certainly can show your soundtrack here. Another way to view your sound is through the curve editor here. If we were to go ahead and take a look at the left of our curve editor, you'll find that we have the sound parameter here. So we could always use this to work with sound. You'll be given a soundtrack once your sound is imported in. So just wanted to point that out to you. You do have that option. I'll go ahead and right click and head over to configure again just to turn off the soundtrack. And we also have an option to snap to frames here. So that's basically a look at the configure submenu. And now how about go to time? How does this work? Well, if we right click anywhere on our time ruler, that's exactly the frame we're going to go to. So let's say if we wanted to go to frame 17 or around there, we can go ahead and right click and choose go to time, and that's where we'll end up. So it's just a matter of where our mouse lands. When we choose go to time, that's the frame we'll be on. So really straightforward stuff. But I just wanted to point out some other options we have on the track bar. Very, very helpful for getting exactly what you need from your keyframes so that you can work the most comfortable workflow possible.